So we'll talk some Utah NIU a little bit later. Utah smashed NIU 35-17. I know the slow start defensively is causing a lot of people to wonder what was up there at Rice-Eccles Stadium on Saturday. I say no worries at all. I mean, but here's the situation. Utah's a heavyweight. NIU's a lightweight. I was impressed with certain dynamics of NIU. They've got a couple of linebackers that can really go. Ross Bowers, their quarterback, who's a Cal transfer, had some really, really nice moments in the first half. A couple of sustained drives and a couple of long passes as well. And I know Utah fans, maybe a little bit concerned about the defense to start out. Don't worry. I mean, look, just remember, these are young kids, 18 to 22, 23 years old, young men, I should say. And the tendency to maybe overlook an opponent that is perceived as lesser than is somewhat natural. I'm a big human nature guy, and I think that's what young people will do. No matter how much Kyle or Morgan or that coaching staff, no matter how many times they remind them that you cannot overlook anybody in football or whatever, they're going to just inevitably kind of do that because that's the way it goes. But when a heavyweight knocks out a lightweight, sorry, Ute fans, it's really not a story, okay? So none of that surprised me. I thought Tyler looked comfortable. Zach looked like Zach. And I was impressed with NIU a little bit as far as their physicality on the defensive side of the football, and that quarterback can throw it a little bit. But the more interesting game to me this weekend was what BYU did down on Rocky Top in Knoxville at Neyland Stadium. Double overtime win over Tennessee, 29-26. So I want to dig into this a little bit. And I also want to talk a little bit about what's going on at UCLA with Chip Kelly, because here's the angle I want to attack here. Winning and losing are both habits, okay? Building a winning culture sometimes it takes a lot of time. And building, I know it sounds weird, but building a losing culture, nobody intentionally tries to build it. But once it's built, it's kind of hard to break down again. They're both habits. Winning is a habit and losing is a habit. Okay, and building habits, whether it's football or in life, it takes time. When you're taught to do the right things, you just try and do them every day, and ultimately you'll see the results. But sports is such a what have you done for me lately culture, dynamic, like whatever you want to say, that's what it really is all about, because there are generations. There's a generation now of Utah sports fans that don't know what it's like for BYU to be consistently good, okay? And there are high school football players, freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors in this state that are just accustomed to the University of Utah being the dominant program here because they don't remember what it was like when Lavelle Edwards was the head coach. They don't remember what it was like when it felt like a miracle if Utah even kept the rivalry game close. They don't remember BYU's performances and winning the WAC championships over and over and over, and the Holiday Bowl miracles, and the Steve Youngs of the world, and the Jim McMahons. I mean, even like the Luke Staley's of the world, the Doak Walker Award winner. That was a long time ago now, man. So a generation of fans here locally don't know what it's like for BYU to be a celebrated football program. And I'm not saying that a win over Tennessee means BYU is back. Now, following the fan reaction has been somewhat entertaining because to start the season, it was, okay, there's a lot of hope about the rivalry game. We've got a stud quarterback. Our offensive line is really good. We've got a bunch of returning starters on defense. It's Kalani's fourth year, the coaching staff continuity. Maybe we can catch Utah napping. And despite what my boy Ben Criddle tweets out, you weren't close to beating Utah. Sorry, Ben. Sorry, Criddle. I mean, look, at the end of the day, JP, BYU was not close to beating Utah. And when I saw Ben tweet that over the weekend, I wanted to call him and be like, dude, step away from the Twitter machine.
The offsides calls, the self-inflicted wounds.
Don't. Stop it. I mean,
they were so in this, minus the interceptions, they could have won that game.
We were the better team if it wasn't for the turnovers. There's a reason I sent that tweet out that everybody was really mad about, okay? And Criddle, I love you, buddy, but you weren't close to beating Utah. In fact, Utah was 4 yards away from making it even worse. I said before I thought it was going to be potentially a three-score game when you look at the quote-unquote talent gap. By the way, have we made any progress with our copyright attempt at talent gap?
Efforting.
Because we'd be millionaires at this point. So look, the reaction kind of went like this. Preseason, BYU fan, you think you have a chance to beat Utah. Maybe you can catch them napping. Then Utah smashes you, and so then it goes to, well, we should go back to the Mountain West Conference. I even heard some really loud, credible BYU voices saying, I don't want to play the rivalry game anymore. I'm over it. And then BYU goes down to Tennessee, and in double overtime, they beat a really bad Tennessee team. And now it's 10 wins possible, and this is one of the reasons why I love college football. The fan reaction, the roller coaster up and down, it's really fun for me to follow. Whereas the truth is always, regression to the mean will happen, come back down, the Dow, the way, the center, whatever you want to call it. Ultimately, the truth is always somewhere in the middle. But even though Tennessee is not good this year, losing to a Georgia State team week 1 that was 2-10 in the Sun Belt, and even though it took double overtime, wins like that are so important because college sports, just like professional sports is about one thing, and that is what have you done for me lately? I know BYU fans love to play the 1984 card, the national championship. The Utah fans will say, oh, mythical, Bryant Gumbel, scheduling, all that. It's one of those conversations here in state I get a kick out of. But nobody remembers at this point, and nobody really cares at this point what happened in the 80s and the 90s. And one of the things that made me think about this is, JP, when I say Chip Kelly, Oregon Ducks, Chip Kelly, what comes to mind for you?
National championship game. Having an opportunity to win it against Auburn. Going there and Michael Dyer not being down when he was going into the end zone. That's what I remember with Chip Kelly, those innovative offenses.
So for 5 years, Chip Kelly ran probably, if not the best, one of the top 2 or 3 college football programs in the country. 2007 to 2012. And it wasn't just that they were winning games. It was also that they were good. And it was also, I should say this. It wasn't just that they were winning games. It wasn't just that they were a good football program. They also had some cachet. The Phil Knight, Nike connection, their uniforms, all the combinations. I know some people don't dig Oregon's uniform combinations. You know who loved them back in the day? High school players. They thought it was cool. A lot of people wanted to go play for Chip Kelly at Oregon because they get, the cool, fresh new gear. And, Phil Knight's an alum and Nike's right around the corner. And now you watch UCLA play and you see Chip Kelly on the sideline. And it's who is, if you didn't know anything about Oregon, Chip Kelly, and you're just watching UCLA this year, you'd be like, the Bruins need a new head coach. Who is this clown? He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, if you told me in 2012, if you told me that fast forward 7 years and that dude, Chip Kelly, would be struggling on a Thursday night against Cincinnati, I would have told you were crazy. Okay? And so what I'm saying is Chip Kelly can no longer sell what he did from 2007 to 2012 as a talking point for players to come play for him at UCLA because it's 7-8 years ago now. Nobody cares anymore. Now, you look back during that time and you give him a lot of credit, and you certainly remember watching a high-powered offensive team with Heisman Trophy winners and national championship implications and top 5 rankings. I mean, they were awesome, and they were fun. It's one thing to be good, but when you have a combination of cachet and success, it makes you a talking point every single day. Chip Kelly was responsible for a lot of people no longer in this business, a lot of people no longer being able to have the excuse of, well, I didn't stay up to watch Pac-12 football. Well, then you're missing out on potentially the best team in the country. You had to stay up late to watch Oregon. Okay, but now that's in the rearview mirror. To bring it back around, one of the reasons why wins like that for BYU on the road against Tennessee, and I can hear you, Ute fans, I know what you're saying. Tennessee sucks this year. They're not good. It's not, Phil Fulmer, Peyton Manning, classic Tennessee teams. And you're not wrong. They're not good this year, okay? And yes, it took double overtime. But a prime time on a Saturday on ESPN in SEC country in front of 100,000 people, and when ESPN's cameras can flash into the stands and you see about 15,000 BYU fans after a win celebrating like that and seeing Kalani on the sidelines jumping up and down and the players celebrating after that epic offensive line push for Tyson Williams to score that touchdown and for BYU to win, That's like oxygen for a program that badly needs it. It's like oxygen for a program that half the time is on a respirator. That's where BYU football is at these days. No, it's not beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa. No, it's not going down to Death Valley and beating LSU. No, it's none of those things, okay? It's not Norman not beating Oklahoma. So, but all that aside, just the optics of BYU going on the road and beating an SEC team on Saturday in primetime on ESPN is helpful for a program that can no longer sell the things they did in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, because it's been that long since a lot of people around here can remember when BYU was consistently dominant. Now, they've had little spikes here or there, certainly. You know, road wins over P5 teams. And I talked about this with Bill during Crosstalk. Like, I understand a lot of people believe BYU should go back to the Mountain West Conference. I understand that it improves some access points here or there, and the access points are improved in the Mountain West instantly over what they're trying to do independently. Selfishly, I like the independent route because it allows me to watch BYU Tennessee on a Saturday afternoon on ESPN as opposed to BYU Wyoming or New Mexico. Due respect. Okay, and since they went independent, we've seen wins over Wisconsin, Arizona, Oklahoma. I mean, we've seen some serious P5 road wins, not just home wins, road wins. And selfishly, I enjoy watching those games much more than I would a Mountain West Conference schedule. But a win like that over the weekend for BYU over Tennessee on the road, primetime ESPN, with the way they did it, dramatic fashion. You know, they looked dead in the water a couple of different times. A lot of people, I'm sure, had their tweets lined up about how Zach Wilson isn't ready yet and how Jeff Grimes can't call a game. And and these are problems, by the way. BYU missed so many tackles. And the 3rd and 1 play call when, after BYU gets an interception, they march down the field and they score, get the ball back, and first down, 5 yards. Second down, 4 yards. Tyson is forging ahead. The BYU offensive line is smashing Tennessee's defensive front. And the RPO on 3rd and 1 where Zach keeps the ball and then throws it into the ground, like that kills all the momentum. Social media was going nuts. And then they recover and get the win. There's a important part of this weekend that nobody's talking about, and that is what BYU has to do to regain some relevance, to start selling kids and their parents on what they're doing now, not what they did before.